Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. If you've been following me for a little bit, I did a post about 2-3 weeks ago where we went out as a family for a ride, and this was part of the ride was our Rhino here. We have a 660 Rhino. This is a 2006, and unfortunately during that ride we had an overheat light come on, and this is what we're going to discuss today because I'm pretty sure it's actually not as complicated as we all think it is. So we're going to dive right into what's going on with this thing. And the first thing I would check, of course, is to make sure there's a few things, right? So this is a liquid cooled engine, and there's a few things that can cause an overheat condition. Let's start with the obvious. We're going to make sure that there's actually coolant in the radiator. Right now the engine is cold, so the radiator's cold. You don't ever want to check anything like that hot because it's under pressure, it's boiling. You can definitely get hurt. So let's go on the other side. So on these models, there's two places you need to check the fluid. There's obviously right at the radiator cap here, and there's another overheat, there's another bottle down here. People call it different things, but this is an expansion bottle. So we're going to be checking that. We can actually see the fluid is, it's between the high and low mark, which is perfect. And then if we remove the cap from the radiator, we saw a little bit of fluid come out there. So again, we know it's full. So that's the first thing I would check. Now that we know that's good, we're going to move on to the next thing. Another common thing I see with engines that overheat, and this is not even brand specific, guys, it's anything that has a radiator, especially with the nature of what we do with these things. You follow people, you get a lot of mud on them, you have a lot of dust that can accumulate on the radiator. Make sure that the radiator is clean, and the best way to clean the radiator is wait for it to cool off and use air. I don't like to use any, let's say, compressed liquid, so I don't like to use a pressure washer because that can damage the fins. But if you use air and it's dry, it'll actually remove a lot more dust than you think. And this one here, again, as you saw, the radiator is in good shape. We actually replaced it a few years back because the fan wore its way into the radiator and it caused a leak. So we know this radiator is clean. So again, that's not the issue here. So let's move on to the next thing. So you've determined you have fluid in the rad. You determined the rad is clean. Next thing you need to do is you need to make sure that your fan is actually working. There's a number of ways you can do this. If you're running the engine and you know it's hot and you can hear it, that's a good sign. Another quick way of doing it on this particular model is if you come on this side, right below the hose here, there's a sensor. This is your fan sensor. And you're going to remove it here. And I'm using just a piece of mechanics wire. If you're going to do this, I'd highly recommend you do this with a fuse holder, so that you have something in case it jumps. So something with maybe a 15 amp fuse in it. I don't have one here because, well, I'm at camp, so I'm just going to use a mechanics wire. The key is powered on right now, and if I jump these two leads, the fan runs. So we know the fan runs good and it doesn't sound funny. You can actually hear it run really well. So we've just eliminated the fan. Now the other thing you would do, if I was at home and I had a little bit more fluid with me and all the goodies of my shop, I would test this sensor. The best way to do that is to set it up in a can of water, heat the water, and then keep your multimeter on here until it closes. Now, I don't have the specs with me, but it probably want to close somewhere in the neighborhood of about 90, probably 90 degrees Celsius. It would start to actually activate. If I have the specs, I will put them down in the description box, guys. But so we know the fan's working. I've heard the fan kick on and off with the engine running, so I really don't think it's this sensor. So let's move on to the next thing. So in the dash here, we have this light right here. This light illuminates pretty well, I mean, any time it wants at this point. Luckily, it doesn't affect the performance of the DATV or the side-by-side. It doesn't kill power or anything else. There's a sensor underneath the engine cover here that simply activates the light only. I'm actually going to say that's a good thing, but because you're getting full performance, but it's also a bad thing because it's getting full performance. If there is in fact a problem with the engine cooling and you're not paying attention to that light, well, you can melt the engine down. So what I want to do next is I want to make sure that that sensor is actually working. And that sensor is actually pretty simple. I mean, we're going to open this up and I'm going to show you in a bit. But while I'm sitting here, I wanted to make note of these seats. I mean, I'm not sure about you guys, but if you ever sat in the Rhino, these seats are amazing. They're super comfortable. And this Rhino seat, both of them are actually still in really, really good shape. And I want to keep them that way. I'm going to do exactly that with the help of our sponsor for today's videos, which is starknightmt Industries. So let's see what they've sent us in. So Starknight, like I was saying, our sponsor for today, sent us some beautiful seat covers to protect these seats. And I'm going to show you exactly how easy it is to put these seat covers on. And I got to mention too, guys, these are waterproof. They're super thick. They're nice and they fit really, really well. I can't say enough about this product. And you got to check out their website because they accommodate everybody. I'm talking like Can-Am, Kawasaki, Polaris. They take care of all the major brands. And they do more than just seat covers too. They do cargo boxes. They do entire covers for the entire unit. You just got to check out their website. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but let's just see how well this fits. So this seat cover kit actually came with the headrest cover as well. And there is a left and right, as my camera person mentioned earlier. So there's a little cutout on this side for this side of the roll cage here. And if you start from top to bottom, these clip on nice and easy. Just like that. They look great. Now let's move on to the seat. So inside the seat cover, there's a little clip here. You just undo that clip, and there's a couple of Velcro straps as well. Keep everything tight. These aren't going anywhere. And once you've identified which side is the top, you just slide the top onto the seat, just like that. Clip it in like this. Get rid of the air in the pocket. Now I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to find those hook and loop straps, also known as Velcro. Alright, and we're going to put it just across like this. Try and keep it nice and square. Then we've got our little clip back here. Put that in place, and that just keeps the seat bottom nice and secure. And this cover also has a tiny little hole back here, so if you do have any moisture buildup, a little bit of water, it will drain out the original holes. And then we'll look at the final results. Look at that. Beautiful seat covers. Going to protect these seats for years to come. And they really work well color-wise with the blue. I really like this. So don't forget to check them out in the description box. Now with the engine cover removed, this sensor right here is a sensor that activates the light that I was talking about earlier. And I want to show you what's kind of curious about this. So with the power on, right now we don't have the light on, but it's very intermittent on this particular machine right now. And if I unplug it, the light comes on automatically. So if you happen to have a break in this wire, that could be the reason why that light's coming on. Or if you have something that's pinching it. Sometimes they're just routed weird on these machines. I've seen them routed kind of everywhere. I followed this wire all the way down to the back of this display, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with the wire. So I've also determined that after a long ride, if I physically hold the inner and outer hoses going into the radiator, they're not scalding hot. And with a temperature gun, this engine's not overheating. So I've done all of my checks, and that's something you guys should do as well, as maybe invest in a temperature gun so that you can check temperatures without actually burning yourself. But I've determined that this engine is not overheating. So what's left? Well, this sensor. I actually think that this sensor is faulty. So I happen to bring one in with me. It's a super easy repair. We're going to start doing it right now. So I got my new sensor here. I'll leave a description. I'll leave the link down in the description box where I got this sensor. But you're going to need a 9/16 or 14 millimeter to remove the sensor. And you're probably going to lose a little bit of fluid. So I'm going to have a rag down below here to catch any of that. Now, as I'm doing this, you're probably wondering, well, Rick, why didn't you check the thermostat? Well, according to the parts manual, and I've talked to the dealer on this as well, this looks like a thermostat housing, but there actually is no thermostat, at least on this model. I can't say that for every model because I didn't check every single one of them. But this model in particular does not have a thermostat, so that's one less thing to check. So we're going to remove the sensor, and we're actually really good on fluid because I can actually see it. It's just sitting right here. So that's awesome. I didn't lose any, but at the same time I know that my cylinder head is full. And we're going to torque this until it's good and tight. There we go. Don't forget to put the sensor plug back in place, the harness I should say. Alright, now one thing that I have noticed on these, and I mean for me in my experience with Yamaha, is when it comes to the bleeding of the cooling system, it can be a little bit difficult. For some reason they do a little bit differently. And I'm just using my Venture as an example for that. I have a video on that where there's a plug underneath the seat that you got to remove to get some air out, because otherwise you will spend hours trying to bleed the system. This one here is not that far off. So the proper bleeding procedure for this one would be to jack the front end of this as high as you possibly can. You're going to remove the radiator cap. After you've done that, you're going to come back here, and this is the bleed screw. So you're going to open that up until you get fluid coming out of here. Once you top that off, or sorry, once you tighten that off, you're going to go back, make sure that the radiator is clear and full. Put the cap back on, and then you can come back down here, and I might grab the camera for this one. So all the way down here on your water pump, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but on the water pump at the bottom where my finger is, sorry, I don't think you guys can see it, but on the water pump at the bottom, there is another bleed screw there. And there's always a little bit of air trapped in there. And you want to make sure you get that air out, because if you don't, that also cavitates and it really prevents the fluid from traveling. Alright, so we know that our cooling system is fully bled. It's already topped off. So the only thing left to do, let's go for a ride and try it out. So I'm going to prime the system, the fuel system this time. And if you guys have one of these 660s, I made a video on why I have this primer ball, where it's located. Again, that'll be in the description box. Looking good so far. Let's go for a ride. Well, this thing's working pretty good so far. I love this thing. It's awesome. Alright guys, so we're just pulled over here. I'm just checking everything over. The fan's running just great. If I grab the hoses on either side here, so I'm talking this one and the other side, they're not hot, I'm not burning my hands. And if I look at the dash, we don't have an overheat light anymore. So I'm going to say that win, that's a win right there. So again, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it at the very least a little bit educational. And again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Well, that was a fun ride. Alright, so we know that our system is fully bleed